We got to cut that out. I know I'm being bad today. I'm drinking.
Well, you're drinking. My mic's all wonky because I need to get a
Oh, you
new.
need that piece. So you need
Yeah,
a
I need
little
to get a new
thingamabob.
thingy for the boom. But
Y'all know
yeah.
what a thingamabob is, right? Everybody knows what a
Mhm.
thingamabob is, yeah?
Yes. Sometimes my mic goes a little limp and just falls over.
That's what she said.
It needs some stimulation.
That's what she said.
Oh,
Welcome to
someone shoot me.
Sunday. Welcome to
Welcome,
Sunday.
welcome to a Sunday where I am brain dead.
But we're recording.
We are
We're
recording.
recording. We got to get things done, you know?
We are recording, and that's what's important. And I don't know how good this recording will be, but we're gonna do it.
We're going to do it. I would like to start off by saying welcome to TBR Lowdown, and I
Oh
would
yeah,
like
that.
everyone to know that yesterday I finally put my seeds in my garden beds, and I just want to let the world know that I finally did that. I'm late, but I finally did it yesterday, and I just want to just shout it from the rooftops.
Well, I haven't
Okay?
even started digging in a bed that I've been meeting, like starting my kitchen garden,
You
and
said you
I've
were
been meaning
going
to do it
to.
for like yeah, I've been saying that for like 3 years, Naomi, and I haven't.
Do I need to encourage you more?
Yeah, or maybe I just need to get off my butt. Like I would do it. Maybe tomorrow I'll do it.
I'm going to remind you.
Because I have to lay out the tarp because I think the tarp I got is about the footprint of what I want to do, and and then I have to start figuring out how I'm gonna like fence it in. I can temporarily fence it in the way I fenced in my old one with just like deer fencing stakes and deer
Mhm.
fencing, and then make it pretty later. Because the cost of food is this is not the point of this podcast, but the cost of food is just getting more and more terrifying. And I was watching some TikTok today that came across from like somebody who has livestock, and
Yeah.
she was saying how like we have to you have to realize like right now is like lambing season and stuff, so that you're just raising the food that you're going to be eating from like a livestock perspective like
Mhm.
in several months, and the cost of food for her has gone up from like for like 2 days of feeding what she has like 3 or 4 times the cost in the last year.
Wow.
So
Phew.
you got to think about like once things go
Yeah.
down the line,
Yeah.
that cost to the end consumer is just going to get more and more expensive. And I'm like, what a
Wow.
time to maybe give up eating meat again and put in a vegetable
That's crazy. I just strive to be like my nana. She just grew so much, and I just
I
strive to be
used
like
to.
her.
I
Yeah.
used to grow a ton, and every summer it would really, it was very helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and I was vegan at the time, so that was even more helpful because I could just eat out of my backyard.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think the Spaniard would let me be fully vegan.
He lacketh the meat. He lacketh the meat. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I planted some. Like last year, I just did eggplant and two different types of peppers. We tried a watermelon, but it didn't go. And
Watermelons can be
I did
tricky.
basil. But this year I got a little bit more adventurous. I just want to, see what happens. I got So yesterday I planted four types of peppers, a different kind of eggplant, onions and radishes.
Hmm.
Caleb planted a watermelon, um uh not your regular ones you see in the store. It's just Kyoto or something like that. And then he also planted a melon, a Minnesota midget melon. So he's
Okay.
got two things going. And then we bought um the grapes, so we're planting
Hmm.
those. And I got a strawberry bunch, and I have something else that I can't remember. Anyway, we were busy yesterday, so
That's
then
good.
my fear is always like, will anything grow?
It might. It probably will. Um, you should try some more like gourdy vegetables next year, like cucumbers.
I have cucumber.
You just need to make sure they get lots of water because that's basically what a cucumber is. like squashes, like
I
butternut
have
squash,
squash.
zucchini, those things
Hmm.
will grow like you'll be giving them away on the side of the street.
Yeah,
Um,
I ran out of my potting, out of my mix, but I do have
mhm.
cucumber seeds. I have zucchini seeds, and I have a few other things that are for fall as well.
And since you're growing on like those raised beds on your deck, you should probably do like a round of beans at some point to put some
Yeah.
nitrogen back into the soil. Yeah, even
Okay.
if you just do like bean shoots, like, you know, so they get a little high and then you just harvest them like
Mhm.
microgreens and eat them, even that will fix some nitrogen back into the
Ooh,
soil.
okay, I'll
And
do
then
that.
you did not come to this podcast for a little bit
Yes, they
of
did. They came
garden
for books
tips.
and gardening. Yes. Where are my gardening people at?
when
Heyo.
when two old ladies make a podcast, this is
Heyo. Somebody out there reads books and gardens and they're appreciating this moment right now.
but those radishes, you'll get a couple turns of radishes in even starting this late because they grow so quickly, and just
Yeah.
keep resowing them. Radishes are
Mhm.
wonderful.
I'm gonna do another sowing
Watermelon
in
radishes
2
are really
weeks
good. Yeah, and then,
because I'm trying
beets.
succession planting.
And if you do, like, beets and turnips,
I have beets.
you can leave beets and turnips in for a while, and they're pretty good cold weather crops as long as you cover them with, like, a light, there's, like, this light, like, really thin fabricy stuff you can
Mhm.
cover it with just to keep it warmer in,
Mhm.
the winter months.
Oh,
And
I've
you
seen
can
that.
grow those
Okay.
deep into, like, the winter months. I don't know how far into Virginia, how late you can grow into, but you probably pretty far compared to New York,
Yeah.
before it gets too frosty for them. But it's kinda nice nice because you can just those root vegetable beds, you can just kind of forget to some extent
Yeah.
and then go out there and pick stuff. And I'm telling you, a roasted turnip that you've grown yourself is
Mm.
delicious. What is wrong with me?
Welcome to TBR Lowdown, where we give you
Welcome to
book
TBR
recommendation
Lowdown.
and gardening tips.
So I guess what this is telling me is that I really do just need to start my vegetable patches again because
Please, yes, we were supposed to be doing it together.
I
Yes.
know I'm the worst. I wouldn't, if you're making your own home thing and it's like a small kitchen garden, I wouldn't invest time in things like broccoli or cauliflower because the broccoli's probably gonna bolt on you when you're turn your back, and the cauliflower is just it's a lot of effort for like
Little
not a lot of
payoff.
payoff. And
Mm-hmm.
there's other things you can grow that you get like lots of stuff. You can get like more
Yeah.
bulk from.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love it. I'm excited. So I just wanted to share that because I was really excited. Caleb had a good time, and we're just, waiting to see what happens.
Anyway, so what are you reading? Now that we've
Okay.
discussed how we're gonna feed ourselves, what are you
Right.
reading?
So early in one of our episodes where we talked about some books that we were really anticipating for this year, one of those books I talked about was Ordinary Monsters. Well,
Mm,
Jordy from Jordy's Book Club on Instagram, he has
mhm,
this, I think it's called Chunky Chapters Book Club. They read a
mhm.
chunky book every month. And the book that he chose for June is Ordinary Monsters. So he does a giveaway, and I won the giveaway. So I got an Ordinary Monsters arc, and I'm a part of that book club for this month. And I started reading this a few days last week, and I'm about 100 pages in. This is really fun. It's really interesting.
Excuse
So
me.
you've got this detective. Well, more like a PI pair,
Mhm,
guy and a girl, and they're trying to find these kids that have these quote unquote talents. Okay, so they're going to all these different cities and countries trying to round up these kids, and some of them have some really interesting gifts, if you will. And it mentions early on in the book this institute called, hang on, I'm going to tell you in 1 minute, the Kai, no, that's wrong. I'm not prepared. Hang on. Because
that should be the name of this episode. I'm not prepared.
I know. Okay, the Carindale Institute. And so the Carindale, wait, is this a spoiler? This might be a spoiler. I'll just say that the Carindale Institute has hired these two people to go find these kids with these talents. But just learning about the kids so far and like their backgrounds and their situations is really interesting. And you're really on the hook trying to figure out what this Carindale Institute is all about and who's behind it, who's running it, and
Mhm,
why are they so invested in getting these kids. And they're actually, in some of these cases, they're lying about having claim to some of these kids. So it's kind of like a mystery. It's, magical. It's a lot of things, and I'm really into it. Again, this is a almost 700-page book,
Mhm.
and you're kind of really invested like in the first 20 pages because
That's great.
this author kind of gets you on the hook like right away, because right away you
Well,
want to
that's
know,
what you
well,
want.
what's going on with these kids? Why could, like, why does this kid like have a blue halo around him just out of nowhere? Or why does this other kid, like, why can't he die? What,
Ah.
like, yeah, very extraordinary talents. So I'm
You know
just
what it
getting to the
almost
nitty
sounds
gritty, and
like?
I'm very excited about it.
It sounds like, not like exactly, but it sounds like when we were reading The Cabinet, that they're, like, collecting all these weird people. I love that I
Mm-hmm.
love anything that's, like, collecting weird people.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. And there's almost like there's like a Frankenstein feeling to it as well.
Mhm.
But I'm loving it. And this is gonna, because this is the Talents trilogy. So this is book
Oh, there's
one.
gonna be a how big is this book, and there's gonna be 3 of them?
I know, right? This is
Wow.
656 pages. Yeah. But
Wow,
it's
that's
really
wow.
good. It's really readable, you
Good.
know? But as you see, I have tabbed already because I have to keep track of these kids,
Mhm.
right? And because there's a
Mhm.
lot going on, and so I was like, okay, I got to tab this stuff. I think we're having a discussion at some point today. We'll see if I can make that talk, but
Yeah.
I'm loving it so far.
Good. I really do wanna pick it up, but I need to wait because things keep
Yeah.
breaking in my house.
Oh
So I
wait,
have
okay. And so hang on. So that's Ordinary Talents by J.M. Miro, or Miro, Miro, and this is out now from Flatiron Books.
oh, nice. So I need to talk about this, and this is gonna be a weird what I'm currently reading because I only have like the first 5 chapters. But so Celadon reached out to me, and they were well, not just me, but to a bunch of people on their list, and they were like, "So we have this book coming out. It's we're not gonna send out any arcs. We're sending you out the first 5 chapters.
Oh, that's different.
If you want a finished copy, you can fill out this form." Because I guess this is one of their nonfiction sort of true crime books. And I guess this journalist who won a Pulitzer Prize for this case that he broke,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's stuff supposedly in the book that wasn't included in any of his original coverage. So it's supposed to be like extra sensational. So they don't want any arcs out.
Oh,
So they're like
okay.
keeping it all kind of shush shush, I guess, until whatever. So they sent out this teaser, and
Interesting.
it's called Bad City. And it's Peril and Power. There's too many P's in this. Peril and Power in the City of Angels by Paul Pringle, who won a Pulitzer Prize. How many P's can I say? Any
Pa.
Pia. So it comes out not July 19th, right? I am almost done reading my things. I was reading it the other day and I couldn't stop, and then I had to stop because I had to go somewhere. But I immediately was like, yeah, I have to get this book. And I was like, please send me one. Please send me one. So this is about corruption and betrayal radiating across Los Angeles from one of the region's most powerful institutions. I don't know if you know about this because you follow actual stuff that's happening in the world. But I guess in 2016, the LA Times got this tip off about a drug overdose at a fancy hotel, and it was involving the head of USC's medical school.
Oh,
And I guess, and there was like a big cover up, and the this Paul Pringle guy, Mr. Pringle, he broke this scandal, and I guess there's a lot of it led to seeing just how far all this corruption went
yeah.
from USC's, head of their thing. And the guy is just, I mean, he's like totally in a just from what I can tell from the first few chapters, this is a man who is in a major midlife crisis, boredom thing. Like he has reached the upper echelons of all things that an ambitious person can use to mark as signs of success,
Mm-hmm.
and he's bored
Yeah.
essentially. And so he starts this relationship with this young troubled woman. I don't know what else goes on in this story because obviously I don't have all of it, but he starts
Right.
this relationship with this young troubled woman who also has like a drug problem, and he's married, of course. Um and he just like keeps her addicted to drugs basically because
Oh
if
my
she
God.
ever figures out that if she ever doesn't need him for drugs, then she doesn't need him. So this like weird codependent relationship starts.
Mm-hmm.
um it opens with her basically almost dying in a hotel room, and the guy who finds her in the hotel room is trying to figure out like who to, you know, tell this to, and like he's getting ignored forever until he happens to be like months later he happens to be at a party with like a photographer that works for the LA Times or something like that. And he finally
Mm-hmm.
gets somebody to listen to him. And I guess that then starts the unraveling of this whole story because like he found the the body, he found all the drugs, he found everything. He
Oh
was
my
expecting the
gosh.
cops to arrest this guy who keeps saying he's a doctor, and he's like everything's fine, he's a doctor, she's breathing. Um and no, nothing happens. Nobody arrests him, nothing occurs. And so he's just troubled by the fact that
Right.
this poor young so then the story unfolds, and it already sounds, first of all, it sounds like you
Wow.
will love it,
That's gonna
and
be
it
a
sounds
wallop of a book.
juicy. I wanna know all the facts, all the gossip. I wanna know everything,
Yeah.
but it's just in a narrative that reads like LA noir, this is LA at its darkest and investigative journalism at its brightest.
I have that book, by
So,
the way.
which one?
Ellie Noir.
Oh. Well, I don't have that, but I have the first 5 the first 5 chapters
That sounds
of
like it is gonna be
yes,
woof.
it sounds really good. So this is Bad
Yeah.
City Par I'm gonna try to say this, Peril and Power in the City of Angels by Paul Pringle, and it's out on
Wow.
July 19th, and I can't wait to pick up where this leaves off, once that's out, and hopefully, I will be lucky enough to get a finished copy, and if not, I will have to find it
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Celadon does come out with some really great nonfiction, especially in the crime kind of
Mhm.
arena. So it's glad I'm on their list for.
Yeah. Maybe see also, maybe as a backup, maybe request that your library purchase it as well.
Yeah, I will try to.
You know, if you tell them now, they probably have an online form. Most libraries do. Tell them now so they can think about making a purchase.
Yeah, I'll have to hunt that down.
I still need us to interview some librarians and stuff because I want to know how, like, what are their sources for determining what they need to buy for the library. This is what I want to know, and I say that because, so like my local library, so okay, I belong to 5 library systems, but I really only visit 2 in person. Okay, right? I
Uh-huh.
mean, they're all like close to me within like an hour and a half, right? But my 2 closest ones are like 4 minutes from my house and 30 minutes from my house, and those are the 2 that I visit. So the one that's closest to me, they have a pretty good selection. But I notice when I go to the one 30 minutes from my house, it's like they are on target. Like all the things that we want to read, that we know are hot and buzzy, they have it. And I just want to know, like, what are your sources? Because
No,
sometimes they're spot on with like, yes, you should have that book. And that one. Oh, yes, that's gonna be a sleeper. Yes. And then the other one, I'm like, why don't you have this book, this book, that? You know what I mean? And I'm like, what are the sources? What are
yeah, I
you
definitely want to know, and I
referring
want to know
to?
how the digital stuff works because, like, I obviously don't go into the New York Public Library system because
Mm-hmm.
that's far, but I do utilize them through Libby. And it does open up how my access to more books, but also not really.
Mm.
So I have 3 library systems that I use for my Libby. One that I go to in person.
Mm-hmm.
One is essentially useless, and
Mm.
it's I rarely get anything off of Libby from this one library. Which I think is weird because it's technically like a reasonably large city in Connecticut, and you would think that they would have a semi decent library system, but I maybe the library system there just isn't as I don't
Yeah.
know. I would like to get into the Greenwich library system, but I looked at it and I know no, I'm neither a Connecticut resident nor am I like. gonna spend the like $100+ to just get access to their
That's how much
physical
theirs
books.
costs?
Yeah, so it's really expensive, and you don't get digital stuff. And I'm like, anyway, um,
Greenwich, get it
yeah,
together.
but that library system looks fantastic. Anyway, somehow I'll find a weasel my way into the Greenwich library system.
Wow.
Um, but like my library's pretty darn good, especially with their digital stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and New York Public Library, it's just sometimes I'm like, how do you not have this thing? Like, I feel like you should have almost everything. We've talked about this before. Like, you
Mhm.
are one of the most well known library systems in the country, probably. And like, how? Like, you're huge.
Yeah.
You have the power, you have the demand. Like, how are you? I don't know what's the factor in deciding like yes to this and no to that.
Exactly.
Um, like, is it just does not have digital resources? A lot of things do have digital stuff because I'll find them in my little rinky dink library.
Exactly.
So,
I'm dying to know. Here's the other thing I want to know. So I have Libby and Hoopla, and so let's just
mhm.
take my local library, Prince William County. I will see something on Hoopla, which is attached to my Prince William County library card. I will
But it's
see a
not in
book
your
there.
library?
No, but it's not on Libby with that card, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
I don't understand.
I don't know either.
It just makes no sense. Anyway,
They
we
don't.
have questions. If
Mm,
you're a library, wait, is the person who does the book purchasing for the library a librarian as well? Or do they have a different title? I wonder. Library people, help us out. If you work for a library and you are the one who is in charge of buying the books for the library, can you send us an email or DM us on Instagram at TBR Lowdown? We'd love to talk to you. As you see, we have a lot of questions. We're
we have
confused about some
a lot of
yeah,
questions, a lot of
yeah.
questions. What are we actually here to talk about today? Because it's not it's not about gardening and how the
Well,
library works.
but isn't it? But isn't it? I'm just kidding.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, we've read some really great books lately. Last
Mhm.
weekend was a phenomenal weekend for reading. We both read
Yes.
Vladimir by
Yes.
Julia May Jonas. This was a book of the month pick for February of this year. If you if you go back in one of our episodes
Look,
in the
I'm a man.
video, you're a man on the video one. You'll see that when I first got my book, they left this out, didn't they? They left this out and gave me two of another kind of a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was so miffed about it. Anyway,
Excuse me, sorry. I still have remnants of COVID. Anyway,
so
so
we
we
read
want to
Vladimir, and we both loved it. So Vladimir, we opened with a woman who was a English professor, and she's married to what was he, the faculty
he was
director or
like the head
something,
of
head
their
guy.
department almost. I'm
Yeah,
just gonna turn on a light, you talk.
okay, and he is smack dab in the midst of an investigation at the university for inappropriate relationships with students. So this is where we enter into the story. Um and let's get into it.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to know, do you like her?
Let me just tell you, I'm fascinated by her. I am absolutely
Same.
fascinated by this woman.
I kind of want to have dinner with her cuz the food in this, me and food and
Oh,
books.
yeah.
But like it sounds like all of her food just
Mhm.
sounds delicious.
Yes. Yes.
I want to go to the cabin, but not in the way Vladimir does.
I mean, yeah, we'll get to that
Are
for
we getting
sure.
to
Yeah.
decide if we're being spoilery or not?
Folks, we're getting ready to talk about this book. We're getting ready to talk about it. So if you want to read Vladimir, read it first and then come back and listen to this episode because I'm sure we're going to spoil things. This is
Good.
not
Okay.
like
I just want
just
to know
a
before I open my big trap.
yeah.
So, so the reason I did not give this 5 stars and only gave it 4, despite the
Mhm.
fact that it's compulsively readable and I like could not, so I had to, and I flagged
Mhm.
it like there's so many like wonderfully just phrased things in here
Yeah,
and like things that our character ruminates on that like are just so well articulated about
for
being a
sure.
woman or whatever, an aging woman, and it's it's how just like quickly Vladimir's like when she lies to him about how he's just, you know, he wakes up pissing himself chained to a chair, how
Mhm.
easily he's just like, "Oh, okay." Like, that
Mm.
right there was like, no, because her lie that she tells him to explain why he's,
Right.
like, held captive in her cabin, and this is the prologue, so, like,
Right.
we're really not spoiling anything, but the lie that she tells him when you get to that point in the actual story is so stupid
Yeah.
that, like,
I
I'm like, you couldn't everything else is so brilliant, I just felt like
Mhm.
that lie was so dumb that I just couldn't. I couldn't I couldn't.
So we have so I also give it 4 stars, and I gave it 4 stars because I don't really know how I feel about that whole fire situation. I didn't love it. Um, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
like,
I didn't love it. So that's what knocked it down a star for me.
it felt like by the end of the book, like, she had this really great idea and this really great story so far, but there was just,
She
like,
didn't know how to tie
no
it up.
good way to tie up all the loose ends, so
Mhm.
some of the tie-ups you're just like,
Yeah. I was like, "A fire?"
"You I know you could do that better because of other things you did in this book."
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that was my reasoning for giving it a 4 star. But like just on the whole, this book is great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
This book is great. And I'm still thinking about it. I'm still thinking about her.
I know.
She she's to me, she's so she's very complicated.
She is very complicated,
She's a
but
complicated woman and she has a lot of thoughts and opinions and feelings, and sometimes I found myself half agreeing with her and other times I'm like, "No.
yeah, and, like, I
No."
would get mad that I was agreeing with her
Mhm.
because I feel like I
Mhm.
shouldn't agree with her, but I
Right.
kinda do. So, like, her dissecting this whole thing with her husband and him sleeping with students and how these students these are not 15-year-olds, these are adults, young,
Right.
impressionable adults, but adults, and they have consented, and this has been going on for a while, and,
Mhm.
her thought is, like, if she had, like, first of all, women are attracted to people in power. She even uses Monica Lewinsky as
Yep.
a,
An
example.
example. Mhm.
Power is persuasive, power is attractive. This is an argument that we do have. We had it a lot around Monica Lewinsky.
For
Um,
sure.
and, like, is he really at fault? Um And, she makes these arguments and you're kinda like, "Did he abuse his power? Yeah, but is he, like,
Mhm.
is it necessarily, like, wrong in the sense of, I don't know, like a sexual assault kind of sense? I don't know,
Right.
because 'cause you're all consenting adults, like, I
Right.
don't
And it
know.
was for inappropriate relationships, not sexual assault or
Yeah.
anything. And let's back up. Let's clarify a few things. So I believe it did state in the book that at the time that this was happening, the university had no rule against a professor or whatever dating a student. So that's number one.
Yes, yes, and
Number
he stopped
two,
once there was a rule.
exactly. So he says, right.
Yeah,
Number two, she and her husband had pretty much an open marriage.
yeah,
He had affairs, and so did
just
she.
she.
So just want to lay those two things, those two facts out on
Yeah.
the
So
line.
this is not like straight cheating if you don't like cheating, like,
Right.
they they are
Yeah.
both aware of what the other ones are doing to some
Right.
extent. They're both aware the other one isn't always faithful. That's probably the best way to say it. They're not
Ex-
always aware of what the other one is exactly doing or who they're exactly
right.
doing, but they know that the other one isn't faithful.
Right.
So and they've accepted this.
They've accepted it. That's a part of their agreement. They don't have to discuss it.
They don't
They
have
don't
to
have to discuss it. But
But when he's being put on trial by the trial by the school, because it's
she
the
doesn't like
school,
that
like,
word.
she doesn't like it.
She doesn't like that
Um,
word.
you know, it's weird because you want to be like, yeah, he abused his power. You want to be like, he's the ultimate baddie, like he's the big
Mm-hmm.
bad. But then you're just like, as she's talking to you and you're reading it, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but I was like, okay, but like, is he 100% or is it more nuanced?
as I was
They
reading
might
it,
be a
I
little bit
felt
more
like
nuanced.
that's how I felt as I was reading it. I felt like because also in my life, I have known women to they make it a point to
Mhm,
go after particular men because they just want a certain kind of experience in their own lives.
mhm.
So I was really conflicted reading this book. I mean, it really had my mind messed up
I mean,
because she
Naomi,
made some valid points.
I definitely made passes at my Gen Chem 1 teacher in college,
Right.
and I was a grown ass adult.
Right.
A
I
stupid grown
just
ass adult, but I was a grown like, in the terms of the law, I
yeah.
was a grown ass adult. If I wanted to make that pass as a classmate,
Mhm. Mhm.
it
Yep.
wouldn't have been looked at as inappropriate if things had come to fruition. Just I did not have any relations with any of my
Right.
teachers for clarity.
Right,
But
exactly.
I get the compulsion to be like sort of enamored by your professor.
Yeah. And sometimes women just like older men,
Yeah.
you know? Even this one, I like her line, where is it, in the beginning where she talks about older men. She says, "What I like most about old men now, however, the reason I often feel that perhaps I am an old man more than I am an oldish white woman in her late 50s is that old men are composed of desire. Everything about them is wanting. They have appetites for food, boats, vacations, entertainment. They want to be stimulated. They want to sleep. They are guided by desire. Their world is made up of their desires. For the old men who I'm thinking of, and perhaps I mean a certain kind of old man that I encountered and that is enshrine itself in my mind from youth. They do not know or cannot imagine a kind of world that is not completely and totally guided by a sense of wanting and getting. And of course, the desire to adoration of a sexual partner, even if only in their imaginations, through the blue light of their television screens.
Mhm.
So
And there's a
interesting.
lot of exploration of what it means to be an aging woman and how
Mm-hmm.
shitty it is to be an aging woman, and because you lose value um rather
Yeah.
rapidly.
Yeah.
Um and I mean, it does seem like an incredibly vain individual. She's very concerned about her appearance and her both like physically and just in general, like how does
Yeah.
she appear to the people around her, especially her students, like the impression she makes,
Mm-hmm.
like the emails that she writes, her relationship with that one student that she gets very jealous when Vladimir's
Oh,
wife
yeah.
starts to
Starts to.
she
Mm-hmm.
she has a lot of like internalized issues that need to be worked on by a therapist because she's got a lot of stuff like
She has a lot of stuff, and she also so this is the part that fascinates me about her.
excuse me.
It's like she's married, but also like fiercely trying to hold on to her independence, and also
Hmm.
not a fan of marriage, although she is married. Like when she's talking about her husband, she says, I enjoy the idea of his virility. This is when she was talking about how they had this agreement about having an open marriage, basically. She says, I enjoyed the idea of his virility, and I enjoyed the space that his affairs gave me. I was a
Hmm.
professor of literature, a mother to Sydney, and a writer. What did I want with a husband who wanted my attention? I wanted to avoid, and I wanted to be avoided.
Hmm.
Ge- Generally, when people are married, that is not how they think. That's not what they want. They want the togetherness, and she wants the complete opposite. It's like you see what I'm saying? It's so complicated.
Yeah. I mean, they have, but like relationships are complicated. There's something incredibly honest about this book because I mean, she was very honest about like what her complicated relationship was and how accepting she was about that. And the whole
Mhm.
book is very honest. I mean, she even says, I mean, I'm on page 14 where she's talking about the affairs. And she says multiple affairs. Silly, what a silly wording. He fucked them, they fucked him. He fucked their shining skin and their panties got wet from his approval. They liked it and he couldn't help it. Like
Mhm.
she's just very straightforward and honest. There is no
Yep.
trying. She's not trying to tell the reader or make the reader think she feels any specific way. Meanwhile, you're
Right.
watching her bend her self to appease sort of all different kinds of people. Like when she writes that letter, when the student body gets all
Oh,
mad at her
yes.
for supporting her husband or for not leaving, or like when she starts to get tainted by him,
Yeah.
she has to like bend and write this like not patronizing. Is it patronizing? No, what's the word I'm looking
It's not
for?
patronizing.
What's the word I'm looking for? But she writes this pandering email where she's pandering to the crowd to try to get her students on her side and to stop having them
Yeah.
criticize her.
I mean, she
And we
has like a
don't
little
see.
open coffee talk kind of a thing where they can ask her
Mhm,
whatever they want and she'll address, those questions.
mhm. But she doesn't show like she's not showing that to us. So we're seeing her real true thoughts. So you're really getting a look at like just how messy a relationship can be. And I think it's
Mhm.
interesting because you don't see that. Like nobody knows your relationship like you know your relationship. So it's
For
always
sure.
fun when you get to be in someone's head, seeing all the mess
Yeah.
from somebody else's point of view.
Yeah.
Because that's what life really is. Like it's not all
Mhm.
wrapped. I think about like all these, you know, romance novels that we all, like to read out there, and they're fun and they're good and they're brain candy and they can talk
Mhm.
about heavy hitting issues at the same time that they have a happy ending or whatever. But that's not reality. Like this is way
Right.
more reality than that.
It is. And she makes a point a few times to some of the students that, while this particular situation is going on with her husband, and while it
Mm.
is not pretty to many, and while it makes many uncomfortable, she was saying to them, you have to understand that he and I have a decades long marriage
Yeah,
that happened
that
before this
works.
incident. And so it's not just so easy as I'm going to leave him
Hmm.
or divorce him right away. We have a history that goes beyond what he is being investigated for at this moment in time. And I thought
Yeah,
that was valid too.
it is
We
valid.
often put so much pressure on the wife of a husband who's done some not so great things. And we're looking like to the wife to like make an amends for what the husband has done, which is wrong.
Yeah,
And when I saw that happen in certain parts of the book, it did kind of fire me up a little
I
bit.
got
Like,
real
get off
angry.
this lady's back. She didn't
Yeah.
do the shit. You know what I mean? Like, get off her
Like,
back.
what didn't you want her to do? Put a
Right.
chastity belt
Right.
on him? Like,
Right. Like,
what?
don't put this pressure on her to give you what you deem as justice for what he did.
But you see
So,
it all the time. I
yeah.
mean, um, who was that Duggar guy that's just got arrested for all like the weird
Oh, that's that big
child?
family, right?
Yeah, and
I
like
thought it
the
was one of their
wife has been. He
sons.
has one of their sons, and like the wife's been sticking by him. But I feel like I've seen tons of different YouTube videos that have really tried to dissect like her role in this and like how much did she really know and da 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 da. And it's like he's a grown ass adult. Like, why do you expect the wife to like control the husband to that extent? And like, why are women expected why? Because you wouldn't if it was the other way around and she was getting arrested for something equally
Mhm.
as abhorrent or the same thing, you wouldn't be like,
Mhm.
"Well, where was her husband? What was he
Right.
doing?" You'd be
Exactly.
like, "That poor guy."
It's just like with the Bill Cosby stuff.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, the narrative was, well, how much did Camille know? What the fuck does it matter? Let's talk about what Bill did. Why are we talking about his? She is not the one
Mm-mm.
who was
I mean,
giving quaaludes to women. Why? Let's not talk about her.
I'm not like up their butts. Like I'm not up Jesus's butt 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't mean I know where he is most of the time because he's basically just sitting downstairs like he is now playing video games. He ain't going to anything,
Right.
but like he could be doing
Right.
anything he wants with his life. And it's not my. I'm not his mother. I'm not his jailer. I'm not his anything. So why do you
Exactly.
expect me to like keep a grown ass adult under some like
Under
why they're
lock
not
and
my
key, right?
child.
Yeah.
Like it's my, and even when it's your child, like your duty is to teach them and guide them and put up as many bumpers as you can, but then eventually they have to go do their thing. And I can't,
They got to go do
even when it's your
life.
own child, you cannot
Mm-hmm.
keep them. You do more harm, I believe,
Yeah.
trying to keep them from doing anything ever wrong.
That's right.
Um, than if you just try to give them to instill them with enough values and sense to try to avoid anything that's terribly wrong.
Exactly. And even then, they'll probably still
They're
do
still
something
gonna do
terrible.
things that are wrong, but
Yeah.
you want wrong you can come back from, not wrong that's gonna put you in jail for the rest of your life or
Yeah.
have no life. What I think was interesting was that so there is this whole discussion, and I'm sorry for all the coughing to editing Naomi, but all the discussions about fidelity and
Mm.
monogamy and
Mhm.
how mad their daughter is about um her dad cheating on her mom. But then you go and find out that lo and behold, she's cheating on her partner.
Right.
And she's been cheating on her partner for a while.
Right. Because what? We're all human.
But yet
Yeah.
her rage for towards her dad is really strong.
Yeah. And why? Because what? We see our parents in a particular light
Mhm.
and we look at them as parents, not as just regular old
Regular
human
ass
beings.
humans. Yeah.
And we don't think that our parents can nor should they make mistakes or do things that may hurt our feelings or hurt our perception of them.
Mhm.
And it's hard when an adult child realizes that their parents are just fucking people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Trying to
And
do their
they're just
best.
people. They're trying to do their best. They're trying to do their best by you and by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
like the daughter though. I like the daughter as well.
I liked her. I do kind of want to be like, "Woman, look at what you're doing. Stop being so mean to your dad." Cuz
Yeah.
like she says, he fucked them and they fucked him. Like these were it's there's things that happen that aren't always morally correct, but
Mhm.
aren't actually wrong, if that makes any sense,
Yes,
like
it makes
in a
total
legal
sense.
sense.
Yes.
So it gets really hard. Like, should he have not abused his power to that extent? 100%.
Mhm.
But he's not the only one in this relationship. He wasn't assaulting them.
Mhm.
They were saying yes.
Mhm. Yeah. And
Should he keep his position at the school? Probably not, because it's a PR nightmare, right? You've
well,
got these
obviously,
people
yeah.
coming, and it's and on reality, most of the times these things like this happen, like the way it's set up in this book. You're not
Mhm.
losing your job because the school or the institution really thinks that you did anything wrong. You're losing
Right.
it because it's a PR nightmare, and they don't want to
It's
deal with the PR nightmare.
it's almost always about the PR nightmare. And if they can't find a way to spin it in their favor,
Hmm.
the easy thing to do is to let that person go.
Hmm.
That's the bottom line. If they knew how to spin it in their
Oh yeah,
favor, you'd still have
they
your
will.
job.
'Cause they don't wanna hire a new person. They
Right.
don't wanna train someone up.
Right.
They
Because
don't wanna do
apparently,
anything. They just wanna work. They just
right.
wanna chug along making their money.
Because apparently, as stated in this book, he is the one that kind of turned that whole department around
He
and
made
made
that
it very
department what it was.
desirable for people to want to
Mhm.
be in that program. So he had some real value to that university. So of
Yeah.
course, if there were a way that they can like turn this thing around and keep him, they would opt to do that.
100%.
But
100%.
it's not always the
But
case.
nope. Did you notice that there was a reference to Rebecca?
I did.
I
I
did
did.
flag it.
I said to myself, I said, she's going to circle to flag that.
She did flag that. Of course, Rebecca is in many ways a story that is erected in misogyny, demonizing women and demonizing the other, but I was not interested in that for them. I wanted them to see how suspense was created, how symbols were utilized, how repetition made the ghost of Rebecca rise from the page. And I was like, so good.
Yeah.
Such a good book. But I think she also talks a lot about
Wait,
The
hang on.
Awakening by
Can you
Kate
remember?
Chaplin.
Can you
Which
remember
one?
what you're going to say? Because I
No.
want to, because there's something about Sid I wanted to read here. You gonna remember what you're gonna say, or you gonna forget?
Yeah, I know you're good. Go.
Okay, so she says here, we didn't want a conventional marriage. That's what we said. That's what you said. And then she says, yes, that was what I had said. And yes, that was what I had wanted. Strangely, I hadn't thought about the idea of a conventional or unconventional marriage in months since the petition. I suppose because I had forced it into this cliched role of the wronged wife. We had
Mm,
wanted to live unconventionally in a new way, invented unto ourselves, and now I was playing the most time worn part. Our conviction wasn't truly behind. wasn't behind it because then we would have shared our life choices with Sid's their daughter. If we believed in an unconventional marriage, I wouldn't have been the one to make all the dinners and arrange all the play dates and schedule all the lessons. We lit a couple of fires in unexpected places, but we weren't wanting to burn it all down.
Mhm. But I mean, like, marriage is what you make of it. That's so, like, and that's why you have to have 2 partners that have you either go in with the same expectations or you arrive at the same place, but
Mm-hmm.
somehow you have to be on the same tracks
Right.
because it a marriage isn't like one cookie cutter thing. It is
Right.
whatever works for you. So you can have a marriage that isn't some big passionate romance and is a friendship with occasional sex, maybe, maybe not, but where you fulfill each other in all kinds of other roles and you're very happy like that.
Exactly.
And that is a very happy relationship. You can also have an incredibly passionate and loving
Mm-hmm.
and da 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 and all those kinds of like there's so many versions of it.
Yeah.
And the problem is that there's societal expectations, there's everybody looking at you, there's all these external things that throw themselves onto your relationship or into your relationship and judge it. And
Yeah.
that can really break it down. That can really cause a lot of issues. That whether it's in your marriage or just in terms of understanding between people.
Mm-hmm. Because when I read this part, what I said to myself was, okay, so they both said they wanted an unconventional marriage, but yet most of the things that are happening are very conventional. So were they
I
not
think
really
that's
being
just
honest and just saying, like, I just don't want to be monogamous with you. I want to be married to you. I want to do most of the conventional things, except for when it comes down to monogamy. I want to be able to be free and having those choices. Because that's what
so
it sounds like is what the deal was with them.
it also just sounds like to me that like you can't escape if you're in a relationship with a cishet man, you cannot escape somehow falling into female gender roles.
But
Like
is that true? Do we
you're
just
gonna
do
get
it automatically?
I don't know, but like somehow you're gonna end up despite some of your best efforts or best said intentions, there becomes a default that the woman does certain things.
But I think we make it the default. I think that we make it the default because we just do it.
Yeah, but how do you undo the just doing? Does that make any
Honey,
sense?
set
Like,
up the play date for Sydney.
so I was watching this. Let's go back to the clock app. I was watching this TikTok about this woman, and I sent this to Jess Owens. We were talking about it, and because she was talking about, like even when women offload things onto their partner, they will also still carry all of the emotional stress about it. So there is all the emotional, like because they're still thinking about it. They are still worried about it. They don't ever just it's very difficult to 100% offload a thing like this is your thing, you do this thing, that is it, I don't need to think about it ever again, I don't need to anything. And this
Yeah.
woman was sharing whatever techniques she has or whatever for like these are the things my partner has, these are the things I have, we each do our things and we trust that the other one's going to do it. And whatever they were talking about, I think it was like about going to the grocery store,
Oh
and
Jesus.
then she's like, and he takes care of the groceries, and he'll ask me what I need, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I just don't trust that because
Immediately no.
if you're asking me what I need, then are you doing the groceries? Because I don't ask you. I mean, I ask you if you need anything like toiletry wise, but like or like outside of that, but I don't need you to make the grocery list. But if you still need me to make the grocery list, then I'm still taking on, in my humble opinion, some of the thought burden of this activity and I'm not handing it off. But like
Huh.
how
See, that
so like
doesn't
in
bother
my
me.
mind, I'm like, how do you hand it off? How do you hand off something? Like,
Okay, so that doesn't bother me. And I guess I feel like you better ask me because you know how my household works. I don't eat what they
mhm,
eat. So you
yeah,
need to
yeah.
ask me. You know what I mean? Because like we eat different things.
Mhm,
And I'm the kind of person where, I cook what I have a taste for the week. So you need to ask me.
yeah,
So that part
yeah.
doesn't bother me because I still don't have to do the actual grocery shopping activity.
No, I sometimes I we don't. We whatever's here is what we eat and that's the end of it. And if you don't like it, you can feed yourself. But that's how I grew up. So that's how we are.
Right.
And but like just think about all the things that you maintain, and then you add children and stuff, and it just gets even more like the amount of things you have to maintain and know and all these things. And it would be nice to just offload some of that mental burden onto somebody else and be like, you're going to do this, and I'm not going to have to like, I'm not going to have to remind you to mow the lawn. I'm not going to have to remind you to do the laundry, whatever it is, whatever your things are. And I think that it's just somehow always because we are the ones that will just do.
Mhm.
Because I feel like we are programmed to just do at home.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's really easy. It's really easy to just get stuck in these roles, even if you say you want to have an unconventional marriage, unless you physically work towards not doing that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, well, I guess you would
Because
have to really
saying and doing are
discuss, like,
different things.
well, right. Well, first you have to lay out, well, okay, we're saying we want an unconventional marriage. What does that mean? What does that look like in our day-to-day lives?
Because
Right?
maybe to hubby,
And
what that
then,
really meant was that he just wants to be able to bang anybody he
well, hell,
wants.
I think she meant it too. That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
they just both wanted that sexual freedom in their
yeah.
marriage.
But nobody actually just said that. They were like, we just want an unconventional marriage. She's like, no, you had a very conventional marriage. You just
Right.
didn't
And
have
that's
conventional
why
monogamy.
and that's why I said they weren't being honest with themselves or with each other.
Yeah,
Or else they would have just said that.
yeah. You
Like,
just didn't have
let's just have an
monogamy.
open marriage. Period.
Yeah. But I'm still gonna do all the lady things because
Exactly.
mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, this is such a larger conversation about like choosing a partner and marriage
But
and
I
all
feel like
that
there's a
stuff.
lot of stuff in here about like that. There's so much to unpack in here
Yeah, it
about
is.
monogamy and being a woman, being
Mhm.
an aging woman, being a mom,
Being a woman who's also
being a
really
wife.
has a good career, wants to expand her career, and wants time
Mhm.
to focus on that career and doesn't want to be
Mhm.
weighted down by all those conventional things in a marriage. All of
Mhm.
that.
What is it like how do you what wants to be sexually desired and how do you maintain that over
Mhm.
as you become devalued?
Yeah.
Um she's a literary professor, and so this is what I was going to say before is like there's a lot of discussion about um, books, and she talks a lot about uh, The Awakening by Kate Chopin,
Mhm.
which is a book that talks a lot about a woman being stuck in her role as a wife and
Yeah.
not having anything that fulfills her, and then finding somebody that sparks joy in her that's outside of her marriage and then
Mhm.
ultimately leading to her demise. And like those were the feminist books of the time because pointed out that there was more to a woman
Yeah.
than what society was offering them and that there is no outlet
Yeah.
that's acceptable, so they die. Like
Yes.
most of the time where women die, you think of Tessa Duverville's, like she dies. She is she is abused by the system she is put in and she has no way of protecting herself because there's just no way. She is doomed from the beginning.
Right.
And that is and like her students are arguing that a lot of these texts are not they're not feminist texts, and she's got that one student, that one nudge who's just like "Meh, meh, 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 meh." But you have to look at them in the context of the time. And then
Mhm.
also the other half of that is looking at how much things have changed and how many things haven't.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Because it's not just because we hear these arguments about like racism, sexism, all kinds of things. Oh, but things have changed so much. Yes. But what about all the things that haven't?
Right.
Like we can clap for the things that have. Like that's great. Good job. We're happy for that. We don't want to undo that.
Right.
But there's so much that hasn't.
Exactly.
And there's so many patterns that continue to repeat.
Yep.
So
Yep.
like the work's not done.
Look, and women are still complaining about having to, carry the burden of maintaining and managing a household. We
Mhm.
just now do it on Instagram and TikTok. Like it
Mhm.
hasn't changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You
It
can
hasn't
just
changed.
I think what has changed is that men and women for a very long time operated socially in separate spheres. So like
Mm.
even if you knew your wife complained to her girlfriends, you didn't it wasn't like it was to her girlfriends. It was and you weren't in it all the time, but now you have
Yes.
social media and it is 24/7. You
Yes.
can find at any point in time and anywhere in the world a woman probably saying pretty much the same things
Right.
about being a woman.
Yeah.
And the things that women have to deal with. And we're doing it, it's jokes, we're doing it seriously, we're doing it anywhere. And like
Right.
there is a much more open and in your face narrative about being a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. And the stories are really similar.
Yeah. And they're no longer self-contained in these little spheres, these gender
Right.
spheres.
Exactly.
So
That's so true. It's so true. It's such an interesting conversation. I just think marriage slash lifetime partnership is such an interesting dynamic thing to talk about and discuss.
I think there's a lot more that goes into it than I think necessarily everybody understands when they're like 22 and they want to get married.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, because then
and,
a lot of people the focus is so much on the wedding, and the wedding
yeah.
is an event to celebrate your union.
And
That is
also
not your
hitting that
marriage.
life milestone. I feel like there's
Yeah.
milestones we're supposed to hit, that society wants us to hit. And there's a pressure. There's a lot of pressure to hit those mile markers.
Yeah.
And
It's
sometimes you
true.
can get distracted by the pressure from maybe some other things that maybe you should be paying attention to before making certain decisions.
Yeah, I like to see when
But we're also two divorced ladies, so maybe.
I mean that's true. I mean I did everything young. So, kids and
Yeah, I
everything.
just
I've
didn't
already
have
been there and
kids.
done that. So, I guess a lot of things are easy for us to say because we've already done those things and learned big lessons and all that good stuff, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I don't know. I do see a lot of women now who are more comfortable in sharing what they really want out of life. Like a lot of women don't want kids. And that used to be such a
Yeah,
taboo thing to say. Like, how? No, that you'll want them one day.
one
No,
day.
maybe I won't. Like there are some who are
Oh,
very
you'll change
adamant
your
about that.
mind.
Which can we just say that's just don't do that to people. If someone tells you they don't want kids, don't tell them that they'll want them. Just let them say what they're going to say. You don't need to put your little opinion in there.
Try
Just
saying that to a man, though. If a man says he doesn't want kids,
um, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, there's okay. So there's this one other thing that Sydney says that I also thought was really interesting. She says, this is when she was talking about leaving her husband or whatever, and she says, Sydney says, "You want to destroy our family? I'm a grown adult. You and Dad have been on separate tracks since I've been conscious. We're just three people. How much do we really identify as a family?" And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." She says that.
mm. Then why is she so upset?
Exactly. And what is she how does she define family? Because they are a family.
But family is
Mother,
different people.
father, daughter. They're a family. So it's like, what in her mind, what does she think family is? We're just three people. How much do we really identify as a family? I just was like, Sydney, you are very
She needs to go to therapy too. This whole family needs to go to
she
therapy.
seriously. But that was a
Um,
striking comment to say.
yeah. I like, and I forgot I flagged this when, so this is, she's talking about Sydney. She says, "Oh, I, of course, was thrilled when she told me she was dating a woman. What a relief, I thought, to free oneself from the heterosexual prison.
Ah,
Straight in is the predictable container in which all possible outcomes seemed already etched into stone: happiness, unhappiness, complacency, strife. A life in which we were all operating inside of a story already told, even as we sought out to live an authentic experience, even as we tried to say to ourselves that it wasn't who we mated with, but the equality of the thoughts in our brains that made us radical. We knew that the patterns of our life were the patterns of our parents, were the patterns of all the dim, sorrel chomping sheep living unexamined existences in all the homes all over this thoughtless, anti intellectual country. We knew that the stuff of our lives was the stuff of normalcy, and how normalcy and its trappings and expectations were all there. That were always there. There would always be couple friends who were a bit more square than you, who you would have to play some hetero game with. There would always be a family who would ask the woman to do the dishes while the men played chess. How fortunate for her, I thought, to be able to evade all of that.
Yes, I have that marked too, page 87. That
There were
whole
some
spiel
beau
was just like
there were some
I felt it.
beautiful,
Yeah.
like, just diatribes like this, where
Yes.
you're like,
Yep. Yep.
"Yes."
Mhm.
'Cause, like,
Spot
how
on.
many times a day do I say to my girlfriends, "It's really a shame that I'm not attracted to women."
Exactly. Exactly.
Because there are some ladies on the Clock app that, let me tell you, that are handy, that like
So
dogs,
handy.
that share an aesthetic that I enjoy, that seem
Exactly.
caring, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Nope,
I'm
men."
exactly.
Like, it is
Exactly.
such a shame.
It's a travesty is what
It's
it
a
is.
tragedy.
It's just oh my gosh.
So that really just hit home.
Yeah, that was yeah. That whole spiel was just right on the money. Right on the money. So, let's talk about the entrance of Vladimir and
Oh, yeah,
Cynthia.
oh, yeah, Vladimir.
Cause I you guys okay, we're not done with this conversation, but like as you can see, this is a very short book, by the way. It's only what
It's like 200, 300 pages tops.
238 pages. But there is so much to unpack and talk about with this book, and it really is, for the most part, very well written.
Mhm.
Um, so Vladimir comes in. Vladimir, what was he again?
He was a writer
Yeah,
and a
he's a writer
professor.
and a professor, and he had just put out what his debut. Yeah,
Mhm. Prior to being hired.
prior to being hired, right? And so he
Mhm.
meets up. Well, he meets the husband first,
Mhm.
and then gets to meet the wife.
Mhm.
What is her name? I just keep calling her the wife.
Does she even have a name?
Does
She
she
might
even?
not.
Did they ever say her name? I
She might
don't.
not.
I don't think they ever said her name because she's the one talking.
Yeah. How very Rebecca. Um,
Well, anyway, so Vladimir meets the husband first, and then he gets to meet the wife, and she's drawn to him.
oh, like obsessively drawn to him,
Yeah,
like from the
yeah,
get-go.
she is really drawn to him, and almost immediately starts like fantasizing about him. And when she finds out that he's married, now she's very curious about the
Mhm.
wife. I think that she had heard some things about the wife because the wife also has a job or is getting the job at the same university where they're working. So she
Yeah,
heard
she's
little
like an
rumblings from the
associate
hiring
or
committee
something
or
like that.
whatever about her. And so she's already got all these wild fascinations in her mind about her and Vladimir, and hoping that the wife Cynthia is a certain kind of a woman and wants to know what their child looks like. It's very weird and very obsessive just right out the gate, which
Mhm.
was really uncomfortable because it made me begin to question like her mental stability because it was just so odd. It was just
Yeah.
it was odd and very uncomfortable.
So like she meets him, and so there's some moment where he like looks like he's trying to reach her, and she says, "I still to this day don't know if he was truly reaching for my hand or if I misconstrued the gesture. He could have been reaching for the salt. The moment sticks in my mind mostly because it reminds me of how timid I have always been." But like I wrote this note, and I'm like, she's trying to answer this question, am I desirable? And she wants Vladimir to want her so
Yes.
badly. And she's
Yes.
so obsessive about
Mhm.
whether her own desirability and her own appearance and her own everything. She just wants to be desired so badly, probably
Yes.
because her husband's not desiring her and he's so publicly not desiring her. And it
Yes.
wasn't doesn't seem like it was bothering her prior to it becoming a thing that was very public.
Or maybe because I also thought maybe it didn't bother her so much when she was younger, but now she's getting older, but he's still desiring these very young women.
Yeah, he's still pulling young chicks
Mhm. Which, as we know, old men can do until the end of time.
whatever, especially if they have money.
Yeah, exactly.
But How do you feel about Vladimir and his wife though? Because
Oh,
um
let
because
me tell
he
you.
because I feel like he's trying to come off like the good doting husband, but he
He's not.
also divulges to this committee like her attempted suicide. He paints this picture of her, this very mentally unstable woman, which she kind of is. But he's not holding any secrets about her. He's using everything to his own advantage.
Mhm.
He's he acts like he's never thought about cheating on his wife, but he's very happy to do so once the opportunity presents itself.
Like no hesitation.
No hesitation. He believes the lies she tells him in a second. He
Mhm.
crawls into her bed and they have weird anticlimactic sex.
Mhm. So, you know, I think Vladimir's an asshole.
Yeah.
Okay? I really do. And I find it so disgusting because I feel like he has co-opted his wife's suicide story
Yes.
for him to
Yes. Because
make
he
him
uses
look like,
everything to his
oh,
advantage.
poor Vladimir, he's got this really mentally unstable wife, and he's
Hmm.
doing the best he can to take care of her and to look after their child, and oh, he's got so much on him trying to make sure
He's
Cynthia
a
doesn't go off the
user.
rails. And it's like he has literally co-opted her mental illness story to make himself look like the prize, and it's so disgusting. I wanted to slap him. He's an
Hmm.
asshole.
He's 100% an asshole. 100%.
And he just keeps doing it. He just keeps doing it. And it's I wanted someone to call him out on it so badly, but like how inappropriate is it for you to go in front of this hiring panel and divulge your wife's suicide attempt? I mean,
Like,
just sit with that for a second.
and she, if I'm remembering correctly, when she didn't know he did that, and then she finds out he did that, and she's not exactly pleased.
Oh, she says, Cynthia says, Vlad is so sick of my moods. He's so fed up with my mental health. She continued. I don't blame him, she said. I'm sick of it too. I'm fucking sick of it. Her voice rose with a soft press of emotion that she swallowed. So then he told me that you already knew we weren't a normal family, that everyone knew. And then he told me I didn't know this. I didn't know this until Saturday. I sat in faculty meetings and fucking potlucks and I didn't know this. He told me that he told the hiring committee about my suicide attempt. I mean, you just want to punch him in the face.
As it's embarrassing. Like every
It's disgusting to do that to
your
your spouse.
your work, your bosses, your coworkers don't need to know anything you're not comfortable telling them about your own personal existence.
Exactly.
Period. Period.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly. Then
that's that's it.
she says he said that's probably why he got the job, because when they asked him why he wanted to move all the way up here, something set him off and he started crying and it all came out in a burst. And he told them how I tried to kill myself when our child wasn't yet 1 year old, and how his responsibility was now to keep me alive, and they could hire me, that I was brilliant, that we were still living in the same apartment where he had found me foaming at the mouth, having shit myself in the bedroom with a note to keep my daughter away. I mean,
And it's not even like my wife had attempted suicide. No, let me paint a picture for you.
right, right. And broad strokes, very vivid in color. I just
Yeah.
yeah, this is where I began to really dislike him after
Yeah.
reading that. I was like, "Oh, this okay, he's just an asshole then." Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Vlad
disgusting.
is out for Vlad and that is it.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. So, he also seems, and she describes it like when he comes over with his daughter, when they're swimming in the pool and stuff, and he's very sure of himself, but not in a very attractive way. You know what I mean? Like he's too sure of
Yeah.
himself. Like he
Yeah.
knows that he's got the goods, and I think he likes to show the goods to see how people will react to his goods. And he just sounds like a really disgusting individual.
He does. I don't like him. I don't like Vladimir at all. I'm also hungry. Sorry, that's a separate statement.
And
But
I feel
like,
bad for Cynthia. I really do.
I do too. And I kind of like that she and John had a platonic relationship so that
Mm-hmm.
she actually had somebody who was giving a shit about her.
Yeah. In an
Even if it
honest way.
Yeah, and even if it was sort of questionable how he was managing her drug stuff,
Yeah.
um, at least somebody was like trying to work with her at her level and
Mhm.
understand her instead of just using her narrative to further their own desires and career.
Exactly.
He was at least seeing her as a person, as a writer, as a like
As a
as
respected
herself.
colleague. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
they probably shouldn't be doing drugs together, but okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
there's a lot of things with John where we he shouldn't be doing it. Um, but at the end
Well,
of the day, like I don't sense that John is actually like a bad person.
he didn't appear that way to me. Did you get the sense that he really wanted to improve his marriage? Because there are certain parts where I felt like he had a strong desire to make things work with his wife.
I think he very much, I don't know if love's the right word, but there's a lot of respect and admiration for his wife. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of respect and admiration for the relationship that they have built over time. Um, but clearly he doesn't mind banging other people. But if that
Right.
was part of their agreement as an open marriage, then
Mhm.
I didn't get the sense that he was trying to get out of his relationship. I think that he
Right.
highly valued their relationship for what it was in his eyes, which was this partnership. They call it, she calls it whatever that Japanese word is that's in here that I flagged somewhere. It's
Because it seemed like he
in
missed.
Japan there's a word nakama, which is most often translated as friend, but as a Japanese colleague once explained to me, is more accurately defined as close people who do things together. We used to value that idea and talk about it: companionship in marriage, doing things together, not necessarily having to connect, but giving our company. Our regular stints at the campus gym were that, our disciplined our disciplined traveling and our attempts at cultured responsibility. So they had, you can see, because
Right.
she's going through all the things in her house when Vlad
Mhm.
comes over and he's like, I can't believe it. So they have had this well-lived life
Oh,
together as
yes.
two companions.
Mhm.
And this trial, for lack of a better word, and Vladimir are the things that are coming in to destroy that. And I don't think that John wants to give that up. And I also don't really know if she wants to give that up, because if she did, it sounds
She
like she
clearly
would.
doesn't, and I got the sense that John missed his wife and the things they
Mhm.
used to do together.
Mhm.
There was a longing that I sensed from him for her.
Mhm.
Maybe not sexual, but just like whatever they
For
had
each
that
other.
had been put on the back burner because of what they were currently going through with this investigation. He was longing to get that back.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a very
Mm,
interesting book.
yeah, yeah. I loved it so much,
It's so
except the
good.
fire.
There's like, and except for me, like that excuse that she gives, I'm like, how does he just believe that? I mean, maybe it makes sense for Vlad's um oh, he's texting me again. Oh, maybe it makes sense for Vlad's uh character to just
Mhm.
believe it, because even if it's bullshit, he'll want to believe it to further his own whatevers.
Yeah,
But like, I don't know. And then every time, and like, he keeps going out in the goddamn kayak, and I'm like,
yeah.
sir, because then he's mad. Then John shows up, and John's telling him about the drugs and his wife, and then he's mad again. Out he goes in the kayak, and I'm like,
Right. Right. Like, can you not just stick around and deal with this? Can we deal without you
uh,
running off? Can we deal?
no, we can't.
I
Okay, so that's
also.
Vladimir.
Oh, okay. I could go on forever, but
Yeah, we
okay.
can go on forever, but we're at an
Okay.
hour
We're,
and
we're, we're
15
cutting off. We're
minutes,
gonna
my
cut it
darling.
off. Yeah.
My darling.
Please read Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. Um, fantastic, fantastic. This is definitely a book that you can read in a day. I mean, you don't really want to stop. It's that
No,
kind
because
of a
you need
book.
to know where this train is going.
You do.
But make
You
sure
do.
you have flags. If you are an annotator, you're going to want to
Oh, you're
annotate.
gonna you're gonna need them. You're gonna need them. I do think she's a really beautiful writer, and this was this a
Debut.
debut? Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. I'm very interested to see what she does next.
Yeah.
I really am, because I really enjoyed this. She had so many parts in here that would just resonated so much with me. All right, that's
All
Vladimir,
right.
y'all.
That's Vladimir. Do you have a book recommendation, my darling?
I sure do. I'm going to go with Marrying the Ketchups by Jennifer Close.
You did love that book.
I did. And this is out from Knopf. Thank you, Knopf, for this beautiful finished copy.
Mm-hmm.
I also read this the same weekend that I read Vladimir, and this is one of those books where I was able to just kind of listen on audio and just enjoy it as I was like, cleaning out my garden beds, and it was lovely. So it says, here are the three things the Sullivan family knows to be true. The Chicago Cubs will always be the underdogs. Historical progress is inevitable, and their grandfather, Bud, founder of J.P. Sullivan's, will always make the best burgers in Oak Park. But when over the course of 3 strange months, the Cubs win the World Series, Trump is elected president, and Bud drops dead, suddenly everyone in the family finds themselves doubtfully all they hold dear. This was great because I love a story about a big family. And this family was what, 3 generations, 4 generations? And I really enjoyed each storyline. You have one sister who's married and they have a kid, and they live in this like very hoity-toity kind of a right-leaning county, and the wife desires very much so to move their family to a more liberal area where, because she's very concerned with like raising her kids to like be around the right people, do the right things, be exposed to people who want to do the right things, and she doesn't feel like they're getting it there. And she feels very out of place. However, her husband feels very comfortable, and her husband is on this like weight loss fitness journey, and she suspects that he's having an affair. And spoiler alert, he is. And so this sets her off to go back home. And so they have this family restaurant, and above it is an apartment, and the parents always view that as like a landing space in case any of the kids needed to like come back home and have somewhere to live. So one of the other siblings, a younger sibling, is living there. So she kind of goes there with her kid and stays there off and on, because being in her home without her husband is a little bit too much for her. And she's kind of rediscovering like who she is, what she wants out of life,
Mm-hmm.
what she wants to be, how she wants to raise her child, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the brother who's gay, who just got out of a very long relationship. He's still in love with the guy, trying to find his footing. And he's making a lot of mistakes, and he's also he's also kind of like in this stepdad role, and I forget how that came about, but he's like kind of a quasi stepdad to this teenager, and the teenager ends up having to live with him because she's getting into a lot of trouble at school and not really connecting with the mom. So he's trying to navigate being a gay man, trying to navigate his gay life, trying to get over the ex won't leave him alone, although the ex is now engaged to someone else. It gets real messy.
You like mess. We all like mess.
He's hiding things from the family, yada yada yada. And every sibling has an interesting, fun storyline, and I just ate this up like candy. I think this is going to be one of those like summer sleeper hits.
Good.
That's what I think.
Means that I'm gonna have to read it.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's really a good time. Marrying the Ketchups by Jennifer Close, out now from Knopf.
I'm so tired. I'm so sorry to everybody who has to watch me on. I am gonna give you uh, a happy little read that's called Jane in Love by Rachel something or other. Givney. She's Australian.
Hmm.
So this is actually, I think William Morrow sent this to me a while ago. So thank you, William Morrow. So this is, I'll read it. The front says, what if Jane Austen traveled to the present day and fell in love? So essentially, Jane Austen accidentally travels to the future. She ends up on this film set for Northanger Abbey, one of her books,
Oh,
and she befriends, and she's like all weirded out, and she ends up befriending this aging actress who's playing one of the more maternal roles in the movie. And then they develop a friendship. She ends up meeting this lady's brother. She ends up starts falling for this brother, but then like her books start to disappear from the world, and she's got to go back to her time, even though she's in love with this guy. It's just a happy little book for
that sounds
anybody who's a
fun.
weirdo like me and likes all things Jane Austen and all Jane Austen spin-offs. I don't like all of them. There's a couple I don't really like, but I'm happy to read them all. But yeah, no, it's cozy and fun and it's
It
summer,
sounds
so
fun.
it's a good little summer read. So it's nice, light, happy. Yeah. So,
I love that.
and there's like some good little tie-ins with like all of her little books. So like if you are a Janeophile, like you will, it's just, it'll make you happy.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, it's June. Our June pick book club pick for the month is The Woman's House of Detention: A Queer
Yes.
History of a Forgotten Prison by Hugh Ryan, out from Bold Type Books. Get yourself a copy and read along with us. It should be a very interesting read. I just ordered this on Friday and got it delivered yesterday, so I'm
Oh,
going to
good. I
start
have to
this
start it
this
soon.
week.
Yeah.
I'm going to start this week. But I'm very interested. I'm very excited to read this. So get
Yeah.
on board with us, folks. All right.
Come read with us.
Read with us. All right. Is that it? We're done? Let's wrap it up.
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
done. We're done.
All right. See you, folks. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.